As a fellow commercial landlord, I often wonder, what is the future of commercial real estate? Are we experiencing a blip caused by a once-in-a-century pandemic, or a complete change in work that is leading to the collapse of the office? Landlords are probably hoping the climate of doing business will return to normal. But will it? The answer is almost certainly no. While COVID may be the storm that exposed the weakness of the commercial real estate business model, several underlying factors have been changing the office environment. So let's step back for a moment and look at what an office is used for. As we go through the fundamentals, in the back of your mind, picture how you like to work, because chances are how you feel is the same as the employees that occupy your buildings. Let's start with the obvious. People have been able to work remotely for a while. It's just never been tested en masse. For years, we've been able to collaborate on documents in real time and meet virtually. This was slowly happening with more and more people working a day or two a week from home. Like slowly rising sea levels. It's hardly noticeable. But suddenly we've been hit with the once-in-a-century storm of COVID. Organizations needed to roll out remote work plans within weeks instead of years. COVID is the great acceleration. Businesses that were originally planning for a decade-long adjustment either became remote capable or failed. All those HR departments intensely thinking about this gave rise to a new term, hybrid work. Hybrid work is the mix of working from both home and the office. It can be either at an organizational level, with some employees being fully remote and others fully back in the office, or it can be at the individual level, where individual employees work from both at home and in the office on some sort of schedule. Companies around the globe are announcing both permanent remote and permanent hybrid work strategies. From Twitter to the Big Four accounting firm Deloitte, teams and individuals now have daily choices about their work locations. After being hit by this hurricane, companies are now making permanent changes to their workforce. This is one of the battlefronts for key talent. Organizations that provide and manage a flexible working situation will be the preferred employers. All else being equal, wouldn't you choose to work for a company that allowed you to work from where you wanted? That allowed you to avoid the daily commute? Well, your tenants want the same. Your office building is now competing with the comfort of an employee's home. Hybrid work is coming. No use pretending it isn't. The binary choice between work from home and work from the office is a false dichotomy. Would you always choose to work from the same location? Or would you prefer to have the option to work from multiple locations, becoming a hybrid worker? Alternating between home, a large headquarters, and a convenient third space is an option most people would choose, and companies that offer hybrid work will be more competitive. For our tenants, accommodating hybrid workers can be tricky. How can a company provide office space to a workforce that is not always based in the same location? The answer is through a network of locations referred to as the hub and spoke model. At the moment, companies pursuing this model are left to fend for themselves, but a landlord could provide locations in both the central business districts, the hubs, and the smaller locations scattered throughout the suburbs, the spokes. They could become a one-stop shop. In this world, the landlord with the best ecosystem will win big. In some ways, this is the underlying factor that is most difficult to predict. For sure, employers will have more hybrid working, but to what degree? And if a large business wanted to roll out a hybrid work strategy, is there a landlord that could deliver hub and spoke at even the regional level, let alone at a national or international scale? Will any landlords make this multi-billion-dollar build it and they will come investment? Part of the answer can be found in the changing nature of work itself. For decades, the majority of office work involved repetitive tasks and physically moving paper. So it's not surprising that the office mimicked the physical layouts of industrial work. As computers take on more tasks, the remaining roles for humans need specialized spaces.
The central point is the nature of the work we do is changing, and therefore we need different types of spaces with different form factors and a different aesthetic to catalyze human skills and enable people to be as happy, healthy, and productive as possible.
Tasks that require humans use imagination, collaboration, and abstract thinking, which are not suited to factory line style offices. The best place to do deep thinking is not the best place to collaborate with a team. Do you want to negotiate a contract in an open office beside colleagues making phone calls? No. Then why would your tenants? Providing your customers with spaces that meet modern work requirements is essential for landlords who wish to weather the storm and come out ahead. You might ask yourself, why is it the landlord's responsibility to provide a gym or offer dry cleaning and not the employer's? And that's a valid question, but the landlord controls the common space in a building and is a necessary partner.
The purpose here is to make people as productive as possible. No company wants an office. Every company wants a productive workforce. In the real estate industry, we tend to think companies want an office. No one cares about an office. But people who are the most productive tend to be happy and healthy.
For many companies, leasing space is a big line item, but it's only a fraction of the cost of salaries. Large employers have realized that spending a bit more on office space means big savings on the HR side, making it easier to attract and retain talent.
That means that every single knowledge-based company, whether you're a small business, a startup, or a bank, you're competing with Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Netflix. And if you're competing with them, but you don't have the same budgets, then how do you provide the same experience to attract that talent?
I visited the Googleplex in Mountain View a few times. There are food courts, gyms, swimming treadmills, valet parking, laundry services, and makerspace workshop. And it's all free. Imagine you're a small technology company looking to hire top-tier engineering talent. How do you poach Google employees without the financial resources to build your own Googleplex? WeWork exposed the huge demand for lifestyle brand in office space. A cool place to work with bundled services that is affordable for most businesses. This means that all office buildings are in competition, but not just on location. Offices will increasingly need to compete on the level of services offered, much like hotels and malls. COVID accelerated this trend. Up until now, as an employer, you only had to compete against Google if your city had a Google office. Some companies would strategically locate themselves on islands, cities where they were the best local employer and could monopolize local talent. Employers everywhere are now competing against the biggest and best firms. The labor market is in motion. Employees aren't the only ones who want flexibility. Businesses want it too. Flexibility includes short-term leases, but it goes beyond that. In the past, landlords essentially provided a long-term lease for an empty box. Tenants tried to predict space requirements 5 to 10 years into the future and take into account the natural ebb and flow of their business. This means tenants often take on way more space than they initially need. It's a little like having to rent an apartment when really all you want is a hotel. It's incredibly inefficient. However, if a business was able to convince a landlord to sign a short-term lease, they still have a huge task ahead of them. In commercial real estate, tenants are responsible for fitting out their space, bringing it up to their own requirements. Depending on how competitive the market is, landlords may contribute a portion of these costs. But if tenants require flexibility, they're unlikely to want to cover the high capital costs of fit-outs. It's hard to justify big capital expenditures for a 6-month occupancy. So in order to accommodate the flexibility tenants want, landlords need to take on an active role in the fit-outs, so the space could be used by future tenants without major reinvestment.
Commercial real estate is literally the only sector that I can point to that doesn't currently solve all of their customers' problems for them. Occupiers are going to put a heck of a lot more pressure on their landlord partners to help facilitate this for them.
Not bundling the solutions to the different office needs together is an odd aspect of commercial real estate. Airlines don't ask you to FedEx your luggage. Hotels provide you with beds. But most commercial landlords only offer empty boxes on long-term leases. Like all global changes, there are new opportunities for landlords who simply put the customer needs at the center of their business model. Tenants need to be more agile. They're not looking for traditional landlords, they're looking for partners. So what is the future of commercial real estate? Where does this all leave the landlord? I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see companies do a few things. First off, tenants will right-size their office footprint as a portion of their workforce stays working from home even after the pandemic is over. Office workforces will redistribute, pushing up demand outside the typical markets. From a societal perspective, I find this very exciting. I expect that economic opportunities will become more distributed, benefiting people outside the major cities. I have several friends that have permanently left big cities for a lower cost of living in settings that have never been associated with office work before. Secondly, we're going to see investment to repurpose existing office, more specialty spaces that support modern work. Successful landlords will offer more and more services, becoming an important partner in the tenants' recruitment and retention program. And finally, we're going to see companies continue to demand and get more flexibility from their landlords. Any one of these changes would be considered a massive shift in market dynamics, but we're getting them all at once. Like climate change, the change in risk is hard to see day to day, but becomes obvious when a storm hits. And because of the long-term nature of commercial leases, things can seem fine until suddenly they aren't. This is both a blessing and a curse. The good news is there is time to invest and prepare. The bad news is humans don't often react properly to slow motion emergencies, and this is an emergency. Many landlords have noticed, but they're trapped in the old business model that's been developed over decades. An entire ecosystem of lending, valuations, investors, and regulators make it extremely tough to blaze a new path. That's something I'll go into in my next videos. Hopefully this video has been useful and will spur some discussion around the future of office space. I had great conversations with people over LinkedIn after doing my last video. If you have any thoughts on this or anything in commercial real estate, connect with me over there.